Okay, well, everyone, welcome back. I know this isn't necessarily what you or I signed up for as far as taking Bio 202, but we're going to make the best of it. Hopefully, you have already watched the update video that's posted on the homepage of our Class D2L page. If you haven't done that, check that out. It will kind of give you a glimpse of where we are moving forward. Okay, so this lecture is basically going to finish up chapter 20. We had one portion of that left before we were to take the exam, and I'll talk a little bit at the end about the test. Okay, so the first few slides I'm going to be kind of flipping around, just doing a little bit of a review, and then I'll let you know where you can pick up with your slides in your note packet. Okay, so just to review a little bit about the urinary system, remember its main job is to maintain homeostasis and keep the fluid balance, pH balance, electrolyte balance in check for the body. Okay, so the urinary system consists of two kidneys, and they each have a ureter, and that connects to the bladder, and then the bladder empties out through the urethra to the outer portion of the body. On this slide here, we have the structure of the kidney, and I'm not going to go through the structure of the kidney because the lab video that you'll watch on the kidney dissection after this will go through kidney structure and looking at different parts of the kidney anatomy on an actual kidney. So you guys have seen that before. What I wanted to show you on this picture, though, is the nephron. The N didn't come up there. The nephron. Remember, the nephron is the functional unit of the kidney, and each kidney has about 1 million of those, and that's actually going to be where the urine is produced. So remember, a nephron has this little capsule in here that is called the glomerular capsule or the nephron capsule, and it surrounds these little capillaries there called the glomerulus. So the blood capillaries is the glomerulus. Also, one thing to review for the exam is blood flow through the kidney. That's something we talked about the first day in chapter 20, so make sure you look over that. So once the urine is filtered out of the blood and into the capsule here, it will enter the tubule. This is the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle or the nephron loop, and then the distal convoluted tubule down in this region, and then that will empty into the collecting duct, which will then drain down into the minor and major calyces through the renal pelvis, down the ureter to the bladder. Okay, just a quick review there. The second class period, we talked about urine formation, and there's 3 steps to that. The first one is not on this slide, but it is glomerular filtration. One thing I was thinking of maybe an advantage for you taking the class this way is that you can stop this video, you can back up if it doesn't make sense or if you miss something. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you. But glomerular filtration, remember, gets that fluid and some substances out of the blood into that glomerular capsule. Then step 2 and step 3 consists of tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion. So once we have this fluid into the nephron tubule, some of it can go back into the blood in this capillary here through reabsorption. So you're going to take fluid from the tubule of the nephron and put it back into the blood from the reabsorption standpoint. Remember, there's 180 liters of fluid that's filtered out of the blood every day, and we don't go to the bathroom and urinate 180 liters of urine. 178, 179 of those liters are going to go back into the blood and be recycled through this tubular reabsorption process. Okay, now some substances don't get filtered out through glomerular filtration, and they go back into leave the nephron through the bloodstream, And those things can then be pumped into the tubule through tubular secretion. So that's going from the blood into the tubule. Okay, and then by the time you get down here in the collecting duct, you're going to have the final urine product. Now, speaking of blood flow, remember the blood comes in the afferent arteriole through the glomerulus, out the efferent arteriole, and most of the blood is going to go this way through the peritubular capillaries, but a little bit of the blood is going to go this way too through what's called the vasa recta, RECTA, and that is the blood that goes through here. It's a second set of capillaries. Okay, it's a portal system, a second set of capillaries that's going to help concentrate urine here in near the nephron loop, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So if you didn't quite get last time when we talked about that chart about substances that were reabsorbed, substances that were secreted, make sure you check that out. That is going to be table, let me find that here, 20.1. Okay, so kind of look through those numbers and see what was secreted into the tubule. Think about what was reabsorbed. And if you have questions about absorption and secretion and which way things are flowing in or out of the urine or in or out of the blood, be sure and send me a message, an email, give me a call, or speak with one of your students. If you'd rather do that, that would be perfectly fine as well. Just want you to make sure you understand that. Okay, so this is where we pick up our new information that we haven't covered yet. The previous couple slides were just a review. And this is, on my end, looks like slide number 41. So that may be kind of where you're at in your notes, slide number 41. So if, excuse me, you need to stop the video and check out where to head next, that's a good time to do that. Okay, so the urinary system, like we said, helps maintain homeostasis. So the body needs to really regulate the concentration of the urine and how much volume or how much urine is being excreted at any one time. And that's going to vary day to day, depending on a lot of different situations. Okay, so the way that the body kind of regulates how much fluid, how much volume is in the urine, and how concentrated or how dilute that urine is through the control of some hormones. And there's 3 of them that we're going to talk about. The first one is aldosterone. The second one is CNP, cardiac natriuretic peptides, CNP. And then the third one is ADH, or antidiuretic hormone. Last time in class, we talked about diuretics, such as caffeine and other substances that increase the volume of urine and make you go to the bathroom more. So a diuretic increases urine volume. Whoops, sorry, too many things to do here. Volume. And decreases urine concentration. Or in other words, it makes the urine more dilute. Okay, so if you think of a diuretic, it is going to want to clear more water and get more water flushed out of the body. Okay, so hormones like aldosterone and CNP, those are going to make or affect urine concentration. Okay, ADH is going to look at urine volume. Okay, now let's see. The ability of the kidneys is to maintain the internal environment, and doing that, the kidneys have to reabsorb lots of water. Okay, remember 180 filtered, 178 has to be reabsorbed. Okay, to maintain correct water balance or fluid balance in the body. the distal convoluted tubule, the tubule that the end of the tubule that's far away from the glomerulus, and the collecting duct associated with the tubules is typically going to be impermeable or basically make water unable to pass through those tubules. Okay, so once the water is in the distal tubule or the collecting duct, it's in the urine. It's not going to get reabsorbed. So water is not reabsorbed in the distal tubule or the collecting duct, unless ADH is present. Okay, now ADH is an anti-diuretic hormone. So diuretic increases the volume, makes urine very dilute. Anti-diuretic hormone is going to decrease volume and increase the concentration of the urine. Okay, it's going to make it less dilute. So if ADH is present, okay, these segments of the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct are going to become then permeable to water, and water can be reabsorbed to the blood and recycled. Okay, so for example, if a person becomes dehydrated, they're going to want to recycle that water. They're not going to want to urinate out that extra water and get more dehydrated. So in that situation, you don't want a diuretic, you want an antidiuretic. And that hormone basically triggers the body to recycle water by pulling extra water out of the urine at the end of the system in the collecting ducts and in the distal convoluted tubule. So ADH is going to make urine more concentrated, and it's going to recycle extra water. So that conserves the water in the body. Okay. And then remember those juxtamedullary nephrons, those are the ones that are going to be working to really regulate water reabsorption. Those juxtamedullary nephrons are the ones that sit very close to the medulla and have the very long tubules that we talked about in the first class on this chapter. Okay, so just to kind of give another example here of how ADH works, antidiuretic hormone. If you have low ADH levels or kind of like normal hydration levels, okay, the person is not dehydrated. The fluid, once it gets into the tubule, gets past the proximal end down here to the distal tubule and the collecting duct, water's not leaving. Okay, it's staying in that collecting duct and you're getting very dilute urine. In the presence of high ADH levels, if the person is dehydrated, the body's wanting to conserve more water, these areas of the distal tubule and the collecting duct become more permeable. They're going to allow water to escape and be reabsorbed to the blood. Okay, it allows the body to conserve water so that particular patient doesn't get further dehydrated because they're urinating out the water. It's recycled and kept in the body. Okay, this slide just kind of looks at a little bit more detail on how that happens. So if a person's dehydrated, they will have lower water content in the blood. Okay, the hypothalamus will detect that. It will tell the posterior pituitary to release that antidiuretic hormone. That's the place, the endocrine gland. That releases that hormone. That hormone travels to the kidney and it causes the distal tubule and also the collecting duct to be more permeable and release water to be reabsorbed. That causes the kidneys to make concentrated urine in a lower volume. So there's less urine being created. Okay, I'm not going to talk a lot about the countercurrent multiplier, but basically it is going to help with concentrating the urine and getting as little water out as possible and getting as many ions and excess substances out of the body. Okay, and so just think of the countercurrent multiplier as a way to concentrate the urine. It's going to include the vasa, recta, capillaries, and that's really about all we're going to say with that there. Okay, it just helps control the volume of the urine and just get things more concentrated so we're not leaving out or getting rid of excess water. Table 20.4 goes through each of the portions of the nephron, okay, the corpuscle, and what each of those things do. That might be good for review there as well. And then the collecting duct, okay, the collecting duct also transports urine to the renal calyces, the major and the minor calyces. So basically transports that urine to the calyces. They're going to then, the urine will then flow through the renal pelvis and into the ureter. Okay. Just real quickly on some of the urine products, we talked a lot about water. Urea is from amino acid or protein catabolism, which means breakdown. Okay, so if you eat a ton of protein in your diet, you'll probably have more urea in the urine. Uric acid is going to be a product associated with gout. If you have high levels of uric acid in the blood, it can cause gout. But that's from nucleic acid breakdown or metabolism, things like DNA or RNA. Urine composition, okay, what is the urine made up of? We've talked about that some. Urine composition is going to change. It changes based on, fluid intake, a lot of environmental factors, whether you're sweating, if it's really hot outside, what type of things you're eating. But for the most part, urine is made up of water and then metabolic waste products. So your body's metabolism, what is left over after those products are broken down, like urea, uric acid, and creatinine. So that's basically the composition of the urine there. Urine volume, we've said before, about 1/2 to 2.5 liters a day, or production is about 50 to 60 milliliters per hour. And again, it's just really going to affect on how much you've been drinking, how much you've been active, and a lot of different things. Okay. One of the previous class periods, we talked about GFR, or glomerular filtration, and we said that was a measure of how well the kidneys were working. Okay, renal clearance also indicates how well your kidneys are working, how efficient they're working, how efficient they're filtering the blood, and it can also indicate if there's damage to the glomeruli of the kidney. And it also can be used to check the progression of kidney or renal disease. So you could do a baseline test when a person is first diagnosed, and then check every few months or weeks or years afterwards to see if the kidneys are maintaining their current efficiency or if they're getting worse over time. And so to test renal clearance, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. There's inulin, not insulin, which is a hormone that regulates blood sugar. Inulin is basically a carbohydrate that is neither reabsorbed or secreted by the tubules. It's filtered by the glomerulus, and so once it's in that filtrate, it gets into the urine because it cannot be reabsorbed or secreted. And creatinine is the same way. So they would For example, inulin, they would administer X amount of inulin, and then they would compare that to the amount excreted into the urine, and compare that and see how well the kidneys are actually working. Okay, so once the urine product is formed, we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but just to review for the test, urine is going to be made in the nephrons and to a little degree in the collecting duct. But from the collecting duct, that urine is going to go through the renal papillae into the minor calyces, the major calyces to the renal pelvis, through the ureters to the bladder for storage, and then out the urethra in the body, from the body. So make sure you remember those steps and know those steps in order for the test. Okay, now that finishes up chapter 20, the urinary system. Okay, so where do you go from here? What is ahead? Okay, so since we cannot do a kidney dissection face-to-face in class, I'm going to have you watch a kidney dissection video on D2L. Okay, so you go to the content page under chapter 20 videos, and you will find the kidney dissection lab. You will need to watch that by the end of the day on Wednesday, March 25th, so 11:59 p.m. Once you've watched that, and if you do it before the deadline, you get 10 points for watching it. There's no write-up or anything, but just watch that video and learn a little bit more about the kidney dissection and what an actual kidney would look like. I believe that they're using a sheep kidney, if I remember correctly, in the video. Okay, so that's due. You need to have that done by the end of the day on March 25th. Also, some things you're needing to complete in the next couple of days. So chapter 20, Learn Smart, found in Connect. That is going to be due March 26th. And when you complete that, that is 25 points for that project. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about with Learn Smart, that information is in the update video on our D2L homepage. If you also go into Connect, there's a Learn Smart for Chapter 19 to help you review for the test. I gave you an extra day on that one, and it won't be due until 11:59 p.m. on March 27th. And you also get 25 points for completing that. Okay, now the test is coming up on Monday, March 30th, and exam 3 will be in Connect. You will log into Connect and you will take the test through that platform. Okay, and I will give you an update and give you more information about that as we get a little bit closer. Okay, so be waiting for a video on how to do the test and all that, and you can always message me or whatever. Okay, but exam 3 is going to be over the respiratory system, chapter 19, and chapter 20, the urinary system. And that is, again, going to be in Connect. Now, just really quickly to review for the exam reviews are on are on D2L. So if you want to click on that and pull up the exam review, there's not a lot of information or not a lot of bullet points on this exam review, but there's kind of a lot of information. So just like normal, you'll need to know the anatomy of the respiratory system and the urinary system. With the respiratory system, you'll want to know the upper versus lower respiratory system, okay? And then the functions for all the structures. What's the larynx do? What is the function of the alveoli and so forth? We talked about ventilation, know what that definition means. But how do we inhale? How do we exhale? Remember, there's a volume versus pressure, atmospheric pressure, that kind of thing. So look up that. Remember the capacities and volumes. So tidal capacity, vital capacity, all those. Make sure you know the differences there. Gas exchange between the lungs. Remember, we're talking about partial pressures of oxygen. What's going to affect that? Also, oxygen and carbon dioxide transport. How are they transported in the blood? Is it hemoglobin? Is it dissolved in the plasma? How is carbon dioxide transported? It's much different than oxygen. Okay, anatomy of the kidneys, blood flow through the kidneys, flow of filtrate and urine through the nephrons and the urinary system, urine formation, process of micturition. That's the process of urination. Okay, again, so if you have any questions on that, definitely give me a call or send me a message. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I will have phone-in time if you need to give me a call or speak to me directly from 9:30 to 11 a.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. My office phone number is posted on the front page of our D2L page. And also you can try calling me anytime or send messages anytime, and I'll try to get back with you Monday through Friday. There may be some times in the weekend too when I'm available, but we'll just have to kind of see on that. Also, some kind of FYI things that will help you. Check out the rest of these videos. Right here is your kidney dissection video. But watch these as well. Forces of filtration, nephron, flow through the kidneys, blood flow. Those will be there to help you as well. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense and we can move forward and things will go well for us. Like I said, if you need anything, have any questions, please let me know either through D2L or through phone or student email. Okay, we'll talk to you later.